intelligent socially, so they know what's going on. They can see how the mother is dealing and what's going on. They understand that. At the age of 12, they are mentally at the level where the boy gets to when he's 20. Right? The boy is developed, we would say, at 20. The girl's basically developed at 12. So that's also why usually it's a better idea if you marry a boy and a girl that the girl is slightly younger, because otherwise she will just drive him crazy. He won't know what's going on. So it's not actually that the boy is supposed to dominate the girl. It's actually so it becomes equal. So because, I mean, let's face it, the man plays the role of the one in control, but actually the woman is in control of the man. It's like, you can use the example of a taxi cab. Who's in control? The driver. But where are we going? The passenger decides that. So the passenger is the woman and the driver is the man. He's the one who gets his hands dirty in the engine and all that, does all the work, and she's, you know, in control basically. She decides where we go. So if you know a little bit about this, then you can have, you know, very well-balanced children. If you deny it, then it's just a problem, right? Yeah, so anything more? I think, yeah, basically the conclusion of all of this is that we're supposed to be cooperating, right? So we have these ideas. We have these ideas that you know, I usually use the example of the feminine slogan that you're worth it, and the masculine slogan, you can do it. Like Nike and what is it, L'Oreal or something. L'Oreal says you're worth it, and Nike says you can do it, or just do it or something. But that's not the focus we should have. We should have a focus of we're devotees, so we're servants. And that's not something we decide, that's actually the tattva, that's actually what we are. We're going to be serving something. That's what, because we're not God, only God can control. So we're going to be serving something. So we have to work with our conditioning and serve others. Serve others through our conditioning. That's the only way to actually get out of this conditioning. If we use the conditioning to serve ourselves, that's just going to make the conditioning heavier and heavier, right? So that's why it's a good idea to know a little bit about how these things work, because then we can engage ourselves in relationships that will work for our benefit and for others' benefit also. So you know, usually we say that, you know, for a woman it's important to get married, and for a man it's not. But that's not really also, that's not complete true. For most men it is better to get married. And just because a man doesn't need to get married, maybe he wants to anyway. It's not necessarily that it's the best for him to just be on his own. Some can live this life and be engaged in relationships in a different way. But most of us will end up getting married and having children and living a family life. So if we know a little bit about each other and how we work, then it'll just be, yeah, like we said yesterday, the ride will be less bumpy. So that's basically what we're dealing with here. Yes?
I was just wondering that if we first start to understand some of these principles now, because you know, many of us were trained in a society where there were no protection really from home or society, teachers and so on. So we developed a very outgoing mentality and so on. And the boys also, you know, they were trained in schools where they would just have to sit down for the whole day and have these things, you know, with them. So in our relationships now, we have all of these things, you know, in our luggage.
Yeah.
So if we meditate on these things and we start to understand the value of these qualities and what we have, how we have to act actually.
Yeah.
It may take a lot of patience and a lot of, but yeah, my question is basically, is it too late, like to?
No, it's never too late. No, I mean, basically, this is just, I mean, you've had millions of lives. This is just where you are now, right? So at any given point where you are, that's where you work from. I mean, because let's indulge in this thought. Is it too late? What's the alternative? Keep doing what doesn't work? No. So that's what we're doing here. I mean, it goes faster if you're a child, because your brain is like a sponge and the habits are not completely developed. So it goes faster, but usually, actually, the minute you see something's working, it actually helps you a lot. Just to know that you're working in the right direction, right? If you've been frustrated with something your whole life, or it just hasn't worked out, and suddenly there's something, just a little thing that worked out, just one situation where you handled that really well and it just didn't become an issue, then that gives you confidence, that gives you faith, and then you just build on that. So it's never too late. And yeah, that's what we do. And that's why also that it's described that the most important quality of a Vaishnava is forgiveness, because we mess up all the time. So, you know, that's what we work with. But this movement and this process that Mahaprabhu has given us is incredible. It's amazing. It's so powerful. So if we engage in it with faith, then we can make huge progress. It doesn't matter how old we are. And the faith grows when you apply it. That's the thing. That's usually the thing that I often think about when I'm giving these types of seminars, is that you sit down, you listen, and it's nice, and you laugh a little bit. But are you going to apply it actually? Are you going to actually think about how do I actually apply this? You know, it's difficult, but if we try, then we will make the jnana into vijnana. The knowledge becomes realization, and that's when it really gets dynamic. You know, that's when you have something to act solid to actually build on, and then you can make huge progress. Doesn't matter how old you are. Is that okay? Any others?
I'd like to say, actually, one of Krishna's name is Rishikesh. That means Krishna directs the senses of all living entities. So like, I would like to say, but it works for Krishna directly control it for the devotees, real devotees. So I should not be afraid of my intelligence, emotions, how to work with, but just if I have to be a real devotee, then Krishna directs my senses.
Yeah, but how does he do that? He does it by giving you intelligence. And how does he give you intelligence? Through other devotees. And what are we doing now? We're discussing this topic. So that's actually the process, right? So you've been given the intelligence to come here and listen. And so you know something that someone who's sitting in a bar right now, he is not going to know. So that's how you will be less controlled by your senses and more controlled by Krishna. Does that make sense? That's how it works, yeah.
Yes. Maybe I can ask a question, not directly what you said now, but it's related to the whole topic. I heard that there was some modern science show that women are more taking on the mood of another person than a man. A man can be more like, he can shut out another person's mood, not be so not like kind of mimic the mood of the other person, but a woman is more mimicking the mood of another person. How can that be?
Because women are more social. You have basically three material levels of consciousness. So that's anamaya, pranamaya, and manomaya. And anamaya means that you're just dealing with the senses just like an animal. Can I eat it? Can I mate with it? What can I get here? Pranamaya, we call that extended sense gratification. So you're involving others. social realization, you could say. And then you have Manamoy, where you're working on the level of Dharma, where you're actually seeing that there are universal principles at work that it doesn't really matter what other people think about that, they are there. So the man will tend to be on either the Manamoy or the Anamoy. The intelligence of the universal principles are just the senses. He will go up and down through one of those. The woman will tend to be more on the social thing, on the Pranamoy. So that's just the mentality. So that's why you also see that women are much better at recognizing facial expressions. Studies have been done that show that if you show pictures of people who are experiencing different emotions, women are remarkably better at pinpointing what that emotion is compared to men. So they're just more social. They understand social relations better than men. Anything else? Yes?
It's just another question.
Yeah.
Of course, we know today there are a few men who are more like women and few women who are more like men, of course. Would you say that all these cases, these are just like kind of like unnatural, as you have discussed? It's like,
yeah.
But we hear that actually there is like also described in the scripture. There is something called the in-between gender.
Oh, yeah.
Actually, some people may be born in that kind of position. So would they fit into this scheme of taking like a feminine role? If they're actually more like.
Yeah, I mean the material world is faulty. So you're going to have all sorts of varieties and exceptions that are more or less weird.
Yeah.
So that's why you have the third gender. Now, right now we're living in a society that is actually promoting and pushing that kind of abnormality and celebrating it. And yeah, what to do? Yeah, there's not so much to do, but that's the situation we're in.
I'm just thinking about the person who may be actually born in that kind. It's not something the person may have learned to be like more masculine, because the person is maybe a woman that is more tending toward masculine, and a man the other way.
It's based on the previous lives, the previous.
So then it would be unnatural for them to actually take, for example, a job like a man is supposed to have some kind of job and not kind of a feminine job. But if the person is actually like that from the beginning, should they still go for the feminine kind of job? Because it would be more the nature of that person actually, I guess.
See, the body, like we also discussed yesterday, the body develops as a result of the consciousness. So if you're in a female body, that means you have a feminine consciousness. So if you're in a society that says, no, you can be whatever you want, and you have a very big false ego, you might come up with, no, actually I'm a man trapped in a woman's body. It's totally bogus, 100% bogus. But it gives you this sense of, oh, I'm special. And you're willing to suffer for that. I salute or knock yourself out, but we see that these people are not happy. So what to do? I mean, it's politically correct in this society to celebrate these things. It's naive, because we know for a fact, studies have shown these people have a very high risk of suicide, drug abuse, I mean self-harm. It's just a fact that it's not working. So what are you going to do? No, I can't help myself. But anybody can say that. I can't help myself. You know, it's fair enough if you're compelled by your mind to act in a certain way. Just don't celebrate it. I mean, it's fair enough. We're not judging. It's not like, ooh, bad, sinful person. It's not like that. We're just reserving the right to say this is not a viable option. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
It's like I have like self-harm. I can't help myself. Okay, you can't help yourself, but I'm not going to tell you this is going to make you happy. You know, does that work?
Yeah.
So people, we're all confused. You know, we're all in kind of a false identity. But we should at least try to agree that what we want to do is get out of that state of consciousness. So that means I'm not the body. Sexual relations will not make me happy. Altering my body, whether it's tattoos or changing my gender or piercings, that's not going to make anyone happy. And those people who are engaged in all these things, they have trauma. They're projecting their trauma onto a tattoo, or that's what it is. So we can work with it. Chanting's really good, you know. It really, really is a good process. So I would start there and say, why don't you start chanting Hare Krishna? And then if you still have to get the tattoo or the sex change or whatever, okay, so be it. But don't think that the sex change is going to make you happy. You know? I saw an article about a guy who had a judicial decision made that he was actually a woman in a guy's body. So he hadn't had a sex change. He just was he got a new social security number, so legally he was a woman, but he was still in a man's body. So he was complaining because when he went to the swimming pool thing, he went into the ladies' changing room. And the ladies didn't like that because they had little girls there. He was walking in there with his male body, and he felt that was discriminating against us. That was completely unfair because he had the judicial proof that he was actually a woman. He was just in a man body. So what are you going to do with that? How are you even going to talk to a person like that? You know? You have a little girl, she's 8 years old, and he's walking in there with this whatever, you know. I mean, that's just a crazy person. It's just a crazy person. And I mean, it's not that I don't respect him, you know. I just reserve the right to say that's totally bogus. That's nonsense. It's not going to help anyone. So let's say he's the extreme, right? And then we have Srila Prabhupada. And so in between those two guys, you have the rest of the population of the planet, right? So we try to just pull people in the right direction. He's determined to go the opposite way. What can I do? So does that make sense?
Yeah, especially when this you said that the kind of sex you have gotten, male or female, that is a proof.
That's the result of your consciousness. Yeah, it's not like, oh, I'm trapped in it. No, you're not. You're not taking responsibility for what you've done to yourself. That's the problem. That's the real reason. You know?
That makes sense.
So you're just in denial. It's just mode of ignorance. It's just time. Yes?
I know devotees personally that have gone through this kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm thinking the trauma comes from the fact that they really can't identify with the body that they're in. And so when they get the sex change, then, you know, in one sense, one part is being, okay, it settles down in the mind, but you've got all this past trauma from a lifetime of living, thinking, and feeling, because it's not just thinking actually,
No.
they're actually feeling something. So we can sit here and talk about things, but they're actually on the emotional level, and it's real to them.
Oh yeah.
So, you know, in one sense, they've been in ISKCON for, 15 to 18 years as a man, and then they change to a woman, and, so many things they can't do. We're taught to be tolerant, we're taught to be compassionate, but at the same time, if they sat here in this class and heard this, I can imagine how...
I'm actually in contact with a few...
How do we deal with it? How do we deal with
Yeah, no, compassion. I mean, there is a problem in ISKCON with lack of compassion. Me personally, I have a certain style of presentation. Often I'm told that it's a little too direct. If I knew that there was someone in the room that had a sex change, I would probably deal with it in a different way. And by no means am I perfect, but the facts remain the facts. If we can deal with the facts, this is what it is, then we can also deal with the fact that we're not judging, we're not talking anyone down. Unfortunately in ISKCON, we're all basically neophytes, you know, beginners in this. So we have a lot of conditioning with us, and that means we have a lot of conflicts, you know. Some think it's great to be this or that, and some think, no, you can't wear that, you can't, and just, I mean, I don't know if you're on Facebook, but I am, and I see what is being posted, you know. So that's just because when you take a spiritual movement that's very pure, and then in 20, 30, 40 years you spread that to the whole world that is filled with technically subhumans like myself, it's going to be a little rough sometimes. I can tell you that I'm in contact with actually 3 homosexuals now who are kind of asking me, I function a little bit like a spiritual counselor, who are asking me about what am I going to do about this. So I'm in dialogue with them, and it's very difficult for me. I don't know really how to deal with it, because on one level I want to tell them, well, it's not a problem, you know. I mean, you're a devotee. If you want to be a devotee, that means you're a devotee, right? But at the same time, I feel like telling them what you're trying to do is not going to work. It's just, it doesn't matter how much I love you, it still is not going to work. So if you have someone who's trying to do something that's just not going to work, what do you do? You know, and they have so strong emotions about this is going to be better. So it's a very tricky situation. It's a very tricky situation.
Would you want to include them?
Of course, yeah.
But
Yeah.
there's a whole lot of
But so we have to distinguish between, you know, them and their body, and that's the problem. They're not distinguishing. So I want to include them. I don't care about the body. Them, that's the soul. Of course they're included. They're part and parcel of Krishna. It's not even up to me to include them or not, but they need to know that so I can express that to them. But at the same time, they're working with the body in a way that is going to entangle them more instead of getting them out. So it's a very, very difficult thing to work with. So what I try to do is just be a friend. And then ever so, you know, once in a while I drop a comment that, yeah, maybe this is not actually going to be productive for you. So it's the most difficult. I mean, usually it's pretty easy, actually, what people ask me about, you know. But this one is just tricky. This is very tricky. So, we try our best. My Guru Maharaj says, just keep the car on the road, you know, ourselves. Just stay in the association of the devotees and engaged in the process, regardless of how, you know, the wheels are falling off and you're almost out of gas, and just keep the car on the road. So I'm trying to work with it like that. Is that okay? Okay, thank you. Yes?
You mentioned earlier something about the students at the university, that they're very stressed, especially at the time.
Yeah.
I mean, I came a little bit,
Yeah.
so I didn't hear what the question was, but I was just saying, like, devotees are also sometimes stressed, and what is that kind of there will always be some stress in one's life, and it's also said like every occupation has its like good and bad sides, and like, so can you say something about the balance?
I mean, stress in itself is not necessarily a problem, because I mean, in the spiritual world, they're also stressed. You know, when Krishna is doing something and they don't know if it's going to go, I mean, they're stressed out. So the question is, where is the stress directed at? You know, basically, you know, we're talking about an ashram here, right? That if you can position yourself in your professional life, then you will experience the minimum amount of stress. So you have to figure out, what do I like? And it's pretty easy. You just look out the window, look up at the sky and think, what do I like? You know? So we say that the intellectual, he doesn't really care. It's just, if it works on an intellectual level, that's it. That's just what I'm going to work with. It doesn't matter what happens around me. The administrator type, if the situation is not there for him to work properly, he will create the situation. So not really a problem there either. The businessman, he will find the situation. They find opportunities for business everywhere. It doesn't matter where they are, they'll find out something that can be made money off here. And then there's all the rest of us who are thinking, what do I want to do? We're the sutras. So basically we should just make it as simple as possible. Get some job that we know how to do, if we can find some nice people to do it with, and then think of Krishna. It's actually a pretty easy life. But because we have this contaminated consciousness that no, it's nice to be in control, that means we all want to be the Kshatriya or the Brahmana. Right? But we don't actually when it comes down to it. When we're in that situation, that's when the stress arises. So we should realize that no, a material situation doesn't have any value. The only value is the connection to Krishna. So being a Shudra or being a Brahmana doesn't matter. Vidura, he was a Shudra. He was pretty respected. So just position yourself as easy as possible. That's basically it. For a Kshatriya, as easy as possible means you have to find something to administer. And that's what Krishna says to Arjuna in the Bhagavad Gita. Arjuna says, no, I'm just going to go to the forest. No, you're not. Okay, you go to the forest, you're going to sit there for a week, and then you're going to get bored. You find someone to fight with out there. You're going to be a Kshatriya. It doesn't matter what you think about it. So for him, he's a Kshatriya, so it's going to be the easiest for him is to get into a whole lot of trouble and kill 640 million people. That's the easiest thing for him. For most of us, that's not easy. That's just a whole lot of trouble. So just get a job and chant Hare Krishna. Does that make sense? A little bit? Not so much?
Yeah, I was just also saying should it be, should it be, personally I could also just go and, get a job and it could be very easy like that. But then I'm saying also there's so many things to do, taking that, also says sometimes, taking the risk for Krishna. I also know for some years, quite some years I was going out and do distribution. I would say it's not my nature anymore. But then on the other side I feel so satisfied doing that service. Never felt any satisfaction in the same way since then. So somehow I was allowed to do that service even in days.
Devotees can be much more flexible about their nature than karmis, because we're not actually that attached to it as much as karmis. So that means you can do book distribution. A karmi would never do that. There was a survey made by some business people about how to sell stuff. They found 3 ways. I forget the 2 first ones, but the third one was the Hare Krishna way. And they just didn't know what was going on, because you can't do that. It doesn't make any sense. You go out on the street, you get abused all day, and you make money off it. And you just do it again the next day. It just doesn't make any sense. So because we're not so attached to it, we can do stuff like that. But when you ask, should it be easy, then yes, because trouble will come on its own, don't worry. It's the material world, it will come. You don't have to seek it out on your own. So just make it as easy as possible, and then when trouble comes, then you take a risk for Krishna. You'll get plenty of opportunity to take a risk for Krishna. You don't have to be stupid. It's not like close your eyes and cross the street. You just make nice, simple arrangements, and then the trouble will come anyway, and then you excel, then you go beyond. But if you try to go beyond as the standard, right? If that becomes like your everyday life, that you have to go beyond what you're actually feel comfortable with, then it's going to be a matter of time before it starts wearing you down. So then it has the opposite effect. So you should try and make it as simple as possible. And then the exception where you take the risk and take the chance, that's going to come along the way anyway, right? Does that make sense? Okay. Anything else? Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.